Hello, Morongo Basin and listeners around the world online at Z107.7 FM.com. Here is the Z107.7 Local news for Monday, May 6th, 2024. The group behind a possible development in Flamingo Heights faced a skeptical but receptive crowd at the community center on Saturday evening, where they laid out their plans for a 4.4-acre commercially zoned property located at 777 Old Woman Springs Road that would include 12 cabins, a kitchen, swimming pool, and changing rooms. Online news editor Robert Hayden was there and brings us this report.
Nicholas Fahey and Rob Massar called the project Flamingo Blossom and described it as a retreat center and pitched it to the group as a, quote, alternative to the oversaturation of Airbnbs that have overwhelmed local neighborhoods. And according to their website, flamingoblossom.com, it would include spaces for events, ceremonies, and receptions. The duo told the crowd they're not developers, a stance that contrasts with their website's tagline of developing for the high desert. The audience seems skeptical of the project description and cut straight to the point. The project is being zoned as a hotel, and according to some of the meeting's attendees, hotels don't provide the types of amenities that locals can actually use or appreciate, ultimately boiling the project down to just more vacation home rentals. Rob Massar of the Flamingo Group cited popular destinations such as the Integratron, Giant Rock, and La Copine as markers of the progress that they see in Landers.
You know, there has been progress. One of our neighbors, La Copine, they've done an incredible job with the people they brought out. You see their parking lot right now. It's incredible. You go to the Integratron, same thing. It's amazing, the amount of cars there, the amount of people that are there.
La Copine owner Claire Wadsworth pushed back a bit on the definition.
This is something that the community can partake in.
Yep.
This is not. Your project, I'm sorry, is not for us. It's for you.
A few passionate voices from community members vowed to fight the development, but after a little more than an hour, the meeting would wind down into casual discussion with many attendees reviewing some proposed mock-ups for the development brought by Oregon architect Brando McDonnell. This isn't the first proposed iteration of the development planned for 777 Old Woman Springs Road, and the Flamingo Blossom Group seemed open to community feedback while simultaneously appearing a bit defeated after the latest version of their project didn't seem to fully resonate with some of the crowd that showed up on Saturday.
It's not bad that this area gets a little bit developed, but that it's geared towards the community. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely agree that you guys have failed today in providing any sort of concrete or even imaginary sort of community access to this place. I think it's a fantasy right now.
You can find a longer version of this story along with a link to the proposed development's website. That's at Z107.7FM.com. Reporting for Z107.7 News, I'm Robert Hayden.
Among the many agenda items to be considered at tomorrow's 10 o'clock meeting of county supervisors in San Bernardino, 2 items are of special relevance to our Morongo Basin. Reporter Mike Lipsitz is here to tell us what they are.
As the governing body for Inland County's Emergency Medical Agency, supervisors are expected to extend High Desert Medical Center's designation as a Level 4 trauma center for an additional 3 years to June 2027. Then turning their attention to 29 Palms, the board is expected to decrease by $221,000 the amount of American Rescue Plan Act funding devoted to design of the sewer project there. The move is a reflection of project cost savings. More details on these items and information on how you can participate in tomorrow's meeting can be found on the Board of Supervisors agenda, which you can access from a link in this story at Z107.7FM.com. Reporting for Z107.7 News, this is Mike Lipsitz.
The 29 Palms Planning Commission will gather this week to host 3 study sessions, all of which are open to the public. Reporter Heather Clisby has more.
This Tuesday evening, the 29 Palms Planning Commission will gather for its bi-monthly meeting. While there are no public hearings or discussion items on the agenda, the Commission will host 3 study sessions. The first workshop will focus on temporary use permits in residential areas. Generally, a permit will be required if an event is ticketed, there are alcohol sales, road closures, or traffic control requirements. The next study session will highlight the planning process itself. The workshop will focus on the authority of the Planning Commission and the hierarchy of the road system and the circulation element of the general plan. The final workshop will concern Housing and Homeless Committee resources. Staff put together an inventory list of resources for those in need. The Commission will likely review and discuss the list before posting and sharing publicly. The meeting takes place on Tuesday, May 7th at 5 p.m. at City Hall, 6136 Adobe Road. It can be live streamed or viewed on demand via the city's website, 29palms.org. Reporting for Z107.7, I'm Heather Clisby.
The Joshua Tree National Park Association has announced the date and lineup for their Beneath the Desert Sky fundraiser event, featuring a number of local musicians. Set for June 1st, this year's event will be held at the historic 29 Palms Inn and feature an incredible lineup of music, vendors, food, and fun, all in support of Joshua Tree National Park. The lineup includes David Catching and Friends, Fatso Jetson, Flames of Durga, Giselle Wu and the Night Owls, along with local vendors and the beloved food and drinks that the 29 Palms Inn is renowned for. Joshua Tree National Park Association works in partnership with Joshua Tree National Park to help in its achievement of programming goals in education and interpretation, along with scientific and historical research and activities. For more information and tickets, visit a link in this story at Z107.7fm.com. The town of Yucca Valley wants to know what your priorities are when it comes to town services. Here is reporter Adeline J. Wells with more on how you can make your voice heard.
The town of Yucca Valley has 3 specific goals when it comes to town services: public safety, infrastructure, and quality of life. To make sure these goals are met with resident satisfaction, the town has begun conducting a community survey to gauge resident approval of services. Some of the priorities identified by survey participants include maintaining fire protection, law enforcement, and emergency medical services, and maintaining and repairing local streets, sidewalks, and infrastructure. Residents also noted an interest in reducing and regulating short-term rentals and facilitating the development of additional housing for low and middle-income households. If you have not yet participated, you can take the ongoing Keep Yucca Valley Safe and Clean community survey by visiting yucca-valley.org/safeandclean. Reporting for Z107.7, this is Adeline J. Wells.
And finally, Partners Against Violence, a 50-year-old certified sexual assault provider, is the only certified center in the Morongo Basin. Partners Against Violence advocates for survivors' needs by providing trauma counseling, a 24/7 hotline, advocacy, and education. However, Partners Against Violence is losing 48% of its federal funding, and it worries about how this will affect its services. Reporter Hillary Sloan is here to provide more information about Partners Against Violence and its work in the high desert.
Partners Against Violence works with victims of sexual crime and supports their clients from the first day the crime is reported through the legal court system, if that is the client's choice. They work closely with the survivor to reinstate safety and healing through counseling, support groups, educational workshops, and crisis intervention programs. The Victims of Crime Act Fund, VOCA, created by Congress in 1984, provides federal support to state and local programs. Since 2019, however, the VOCA funds have declined due to shrinking deposits and changing prosecutorial strategies. VOCA has notified PAV that 48% of its budget will be cut by October. PAV serves approximately 500 clients and their family members per year. The recent funding cuts will have a devastating impact on survivors and their families. Executive Director of Partners Against Violence, Michelle Cates, emphasized the need for legislative action and urgent support. Grant funding from private foundations and city government grants will not cover operating costs. Cates became emotional when discussing the possibility of closing offices or laying off staff.
And why I'm so emotional about it is because we've spent decades building these services, and we see the impact that they have on survivors, and we know that survivors need us.
Partners Against Violence and other advocacy groups will continue to fight to keep the doors open and provide free services. In a final comment about the work of Partners Against Violence, Kate said,
So much of the prevention work that we do is less about talking about sexual violence and more about nurturing and encouraging dignity and respect for folks so that we change social norms.
For more information on this story, go to Z107.7fm.com. For Z107.7, this is reporter Hillary Sloan.
That's our local news. Hear local news 7 times a day, 7 days a week at 7, 8, 9, noon, 4, 5, and 6. If you hear news happening, let us know about it. Email us at tips@Z107.7fm.com. Reporting for the Morongo Basin News Leader, the award-winning Z107.7 Local News, I'm Jeff Harmetz.